revealed who everybody is and what they're all about. About midpoint in the movie, about at the midpoint of the movie, things get a little tight when Grinko comes along and starts investigating people. And then in the third act, the climactic ending revolves around how Jesse and Roy kind of find their inner strength to escape the results of their actions. So it's done very, very well. And a lot of that has to be done. A lot of that is credit towards the director, Brad Anderson. Brad has spent most of his career on television shows, and he's directed an episode of The Man in the High Castle. He's done episodes on The Wire, Treme, Boardwalk Empire, and he kind of stepped into film when he did a horror movie called Session 9, and he was a part of The Machinist. One of the things I liked about this movie was that there was a lack of music, which really added to the grittiness of the picture. And the camera angles on the train really gave it a very claustrophobic feel as to, there really wasn't an escape. A lot of times, a close-up on the actors' faces gave a whole new meaning to the term poker face, as you were really trying to figure out how the characters are trying to bluff one another into giving up information about what it is that they're trying to learn about. The set pieces used in the climax of the film are absolutely tremendous, and it makes you wonder how much it cost to shoot that particular scene, because they could have only done it once. The cinematography and the aerial shots in the train really give you a sense of isolation, and that there's no way out and nowhere to run or hide from Grinko. Now, what worked? I thought the vulnerability of Jesse and Roy, you really get a sense of them just being at the wrong place at the wrong time. And the way Ben Kingsley is introduced and then reintroduced as part of the conflicts, I thought was absolutely fantastic. What didn't work for me was that I was kind of hoping there'd be a little bit more of a backstory to Kingsley's character with a little bit more depth. We really don't know exactly who he is. Same thing with Carlos's character. There was also, they were a little bit too two-dimensional for me. But I would like to have known what all these guys' motivations were, which, ultimately launched the adventure. Now, from a rating standpoint, the movie is actually rated R, because of some graphic violence and some language. There is a torture scene in there. So ladies, if you are not prone to seeing torture, you might want to look away. As far as the Aristotle index, there were only a few unconvincing possibilities. There were moments where I kind of felt like, the movie could have easily ended if one of the characters had just done this or maybe done that, and that would have been the end of it. But for the sake of the plot moving along, you had to kind of suspend your disbelief. But it's okay, because the way it's done, it's fantastic. So it's like you're not like, oh, there's no way that would have happened. You are kind of watching it like, ooh, they just got away. Ooh, they just missed it. So there's some moments there, but for the most part, it was very, very well done. IMDb gave it a solid 6.7. Rotten Tomatoes gave it a scintillating 91%. And the audience score was 65. I don't know why. Maybe it's because people didn't hear about it. But for me, on my Cinema and Cocktails rating, I gave it a strong 4.5, man. I can't quite give it a 5 because because it was on a train. I thought there were some instances where the story could have ended very easily, but all of those likely impossibilities were so well crafted, it really saved the movie, and it made me even think about possibly going on a Transsiberian vacation. So as soon as I heard Ben Kingsley's accent, I immediately stopped the film and said, okay, it's time to make the drink. And I knew I wanted to go with a Moscow Mule. Now, full disclosure, I did have to stop and go to the store to grab some ingredients, but I'll explain that to you as we get to that part. The first thing you want to do when you make this drink is get a good vodka. Now, I would recommend either Stolichnaya or Russian Standard. No Grey Goose, no Belvedere, no Smirnoff or Ciroc or Amsterdam or whatever. We want, for this, we want a good Russian vodka. Stolichnaya or Russian Standard. Good Russian vodka. That's what we want for this, okay? So now when you make it, you're going to use roughly about 1.5 ounces of vodka. You want to get about 1/4 ounce of some lime juice, and you want to get 4 ounces of ginger beer. Now, again, I like, Gosling's ginger beer. So we'll go with that. Now, when you make it, you want to, put the, here's the thing about a Moscow Mule. They usually serve these things in copper mugs. Okay. Something about the copper mug that keeps the drink cooler longer than just putting it in a regular glass. But if you don't have a copper mug, you can use a regular highball glass. Okay. Add your lime juice, stir it gently because you don't want it fizzing all over the place. And then, serve it on top of the rocks and then drink. Okay. It's absolutely fantastic. What I like most about the Moscow Mule is that anybody can enjoy this drink. Okay. It's a little fizzy, it's a little sweet, but it also has a very, very sharp bite to it to those who like a drink that has a good kick, just like the movie Transsiberian. When I think about a lot of the negative aspects of things that are, going on in the criminal underworld, one of the things that kind of sticks out to me is human trafficking. Now, I first got exposed to human trafficking, when I was watching The Wire. I don't know if you all remember. My favorite season was season 2. I thought it was just the stories that were being told in season 2 had such an impact on the series. I know season 1 was great and season 3 and blah, blah, blah. But when you really look at how season 2 really opened up the exposition for so many different characters. But one of the storylines in there revolving around those 14 girls in the can, it just kind of stuck with me, Sitting up here thinking about how these women were probably snatched from some place over in Eastern Europe and then placed in a can to travel across the Atlantic to Baltimore to be used as escorts. And they were lured in by telling them they were going to be this or be that. It was just so, it's unfortunate, it's unfortunate that some women are forced into that lifestyle, thinking that they're doing things for a better lifestyle to help their families out. And that's the kind of story that's kind of told in flashbacks in Eastern Promises, revolving around this Russian teenager who kind of leaves clues about her existence in this journal that has these connections to this mob family. So, this is a complex story that requires, complex acting. And so I'm glad they got the people to play the roles they did for this. So the first of which, let's begin with Naomi Watts. She plays Anna, and she's been around since 1986. Very, very well. I think she's probably one of the more underrated actresses in Hollywood. She was fantastic in Mulholland Drive. I know I first noticed her in The Ring. She was in 21 Grams. I wonder who paid her to do King Kong. Because when you see the roles that she's in, and then you see her as Ann Darrow in King Kong, you're just like, come on, who? They must have gave her a lot of money to play that, because she was awesome in Fair Game when she played Valerie Plame, the CIA agent that was kind of caught in that whole disclosure thing. Oh, she's fantastic. Has anybody seen Adore? I hear nothing. Adore is on Netflix, and man. If you've got nothing to do one night and you're sitting around bored and you want to see an interesting story, man, it is a story about these two single moms who sleep with each other's sons. And I'll just leave it at that. But it's her and Robin Wright, which, I don't know if you're a guy in your 20s and your mom looks like Naomi Watts or, Robin Wright. I don't know. I digress. She was absolutely fantastic in The Sea of Trees opposite Matthew McConaughey and was astounding in The Impossible. I don't know if anybody saw that one. That was a movie about the tsunami that hit out on the hit out in Asia. Oh my God, Jab, she was great. And she was also very good in St. Vincent too as well. So, she's had an extremely well accomplished career. Viggio Mortenson plays Nikolai, another astounding 60 credits to his character, to his roles. And I don't know if people remember this, but he actually was in Carlito's way back in 1984. Man, he was a cripple in a chair and was one of the first guys to portray Carlito Brigante, aka Al Pacino. He was one of the officers in Crimson Tide, with Denzel Washington. He was an albino alligator. He was great in 28 Days. He was awesome in Hidalgo. If you have not seen A History of Violence, it is worth checking out. He's opposite Ed Harris playing this guy named Tom Stahl, who you're not quite sure exactly who he is. He was cowboy cool in Appaloosa. He was gritty in the movie The Road. I don't know if anybody saw that. That's the movie that the game The Last of Us is based on. It's called The Road. He got an Oscar nod for Green Book. He was really slimy as David Shaw in A Perfect Murder with him and Gwyneth Paltrow and Michael Douglas. But he will forever be known for his role in Lord of the Rings when he was Aragorn. So, I mean, this guy has the ability to play a variety of roles. He is definitely one of the more underrated character actors in Hollywood. Vincent Cassel plays Kirill, who has a very impressive 90 credits to his name, more than Viggio Mortenson. He's an international actor, so I don't really know much about him. I know that he did pop up on the scene. For those of you all that saw Ocean's 12, he was Francois Toulour, if you recall correctly. He was the French thief that was messing around with George Clooney and those guys. He was fantastic in Derailed as LaRoche. He was in Black Swan as Thomas Leroy. I think that was like the dance instructor. He was also in another international film called Mezzarine Part 1 and 2, where he plays this gangster named Jacques Mezzarine. He was in Our Day Will Come, Beauty and the Beast. He's been on Westworld. He always seems to play these really kind of chill and calculating characters. But what's interesting is in Eastern Promises, man, he's just unhinged. Armin Mueller-Stahl plays Simeon. And I tell you what, when I was looking up his information, I'm very curious about a movie I'm going to check out by him called Conversation with the Beast, where he actually plays a 103-year-old Adolf Hitler. So it's kind of like one of those kind of history bending narratives where Hitler allegedly never dies and he's hiding out somewhere and somebody finds him and gives him an interview. So I'm curious about this. A lot of people may have remembered Armin Mueller from the movie The Game. He was Anson Bear. Remember that was the guy that Michael Douglas was trying to fire, and he had the briefcase and it had all the, he couldn't open it and he kept getting upset. That's Anson Mueller. He was on The 13th Floor. He's been in The West Wing, and he's also done another great film called The International, where he played Wilhelm Wexler. So, again, very great complex character actors to play a lot of these really intense, complex roles. Now, the arcs for each one of these persons. Anna's character is pretty much, the lead on this. She's the protagonist. And man, she goes through some changes. She has been through some tough times that explain her motivations for her actions that she takes throughout the entire film. And a lot of it's based on, a lot of her history helps kind of push the decisions that she makes. Her story kind of begins with a very placid life lacking purpose, but then she finds her purpose as the film concludes. Nikolai has his own reasons for being who he is. Through it all, he has a very stoic demeanor. It's kind of hard to read it sometimes, but his true character is revealed throughout the progression of the movie. Kirill, interestingly enough, I thought his character went through the most changes. He's kind of like this daddy's boy who is constantly seeking his father's approval, but never really finds it. He is as reckless as he is undisciplined, and he kind of acts out in order to constantly prove himself to his fathers and to others. But ultimately, it's his moral center that pushes him, that makes decisions that kind of shape the outcome of the story. Simeon is flat for a reason. He is the head of the crime family and must remain cool and in control at all times. But what's interesting is that for somebody who controls all that he surveys, he is now faced with a situation that he has very little control over. And he ends the film as he begins it, very cold, very calculating, and has very little remorse. The dialogue in this movie is very intense. You must pay attention to what each character is saying. No word or no line is wasted. This is a very precise film. Each conversation is a clue that helps lead to discovering the source of all the drama, the conflict that ensues, and more importantly, how that conflict is going to be resolved. I thought it was very, very real, very, very